What the hell is an ICP? I don't know what it means, but like it's such clinical language.
As AI becomes increasingly important, what's going to be the role of the CMO of the future?
AI isn't selling to AI. AI will be selling to humans. Human dynamics, human psychology doesn't change. And fundamentally, I think that's what the CMO's role is going to be about.
How do you get to know humans?
Welcome to Known, where tech brand builders share their journeys and teach you how to build your own. My name is Stella Fries.
And I am Anastasia Kulibaba.
Today, we're interviewing Paul Afshar. Paul is the CMO of Paybis.
In this episode, we're speaking about why good products are still get ignored, how marketing leadership looks like today, how to build trust in low-trust industries, and whether AI will change marketing for better.
Let's dive in. Hi, Paul. Thanks for being with us today. How are you?
I'm great. My absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thanks. So let's dive in.
Yeah.
Paul, you have a very impressive career. You've been working with software as a service, fintech products, crypto products, and these products are not necessarily always the easiest to market because of the complexity. So how do you craft good stories around products which are generally a bit complex to market?
Look, the most boring product I had to market was accounting software, right? And no one cares about accounting software, even accountants. The key thing for me is really getting to the heart of the human behind like the customer, if that makes sense. You know, marketers talk a lot about numbers and they talk a lot about ICPs. What the hell is an ICP? I don't know what it means, but like it's such clinical language. What we're really talking about, even in B2B marketing, is like humans. What are their like very human pain points? I'm worried about my next promotion. I'm worried about being fired. I know that my department's spending too much money. When you understand those sort of psychological dynamics, I think it becomes much easier to work out not only how to market, but also to really humanize the product. So with the example of accounting software, we weren't selling accounting software. We were selling time, as in like, get your time back. Get your time back. You're an accountant. You help support businesses grow. Get your time back to do that more. Get your time back to spend back with your family. And that worked really well. So it's all about humans.
How do you get to know humans?
How does anyone get to know humans? You know, I believe research is really important, but even more important than that is actually going out and meeting your customers, right? You could do that on a B2B and a B2C business. So one of the things that I always do when I start a new role is I listen into sales calls, you know, because you kind of hear people's real objections, real pain points. I try and go and visit customers, B2B and B2C, spend some time with them, take them out for a coffee, take them out for dinner. In a couple of roles, I've set up like customer boards. So this is, you know, 10, 20 people, we meet on a quarterly basis. Just immerse yourself with them in their lives. And the research is helpful, but there's nothing better than sitting down with someone and having a cup of tea.
Did you have a case when you understood some insight from the conversation with the customer and then you transformed it into a very successful campaign?
Yeah. Yes, I do. We, in my previous job, didn't really understand how important trust was, if that makes sense. And only by speaking with actually a couple of the payment directors and operation directors in the big businesses that we were targeting, and it was generally sort of e-commerce, fintech businesses, etc., did we understand that, you know, trust was actually one of the key defining features when it came to choosing a provider, a payment provider. Because let's be honest, they all do the same, right? There's huge commodification when it comes to payments, when it comes to fintech, when it comes to crypto providers. The difference is either a little bit in the price, but you can always negotiate on that. But the real difference is in the trust. And so we sort of took that and we said, okay, well, what do we do with that? Let us get a big Hollywood name that people know and love and trust. And so we spend millions of dollars on securing a guy called, he might not recognize his name, but you definitely recognize his face, Simu Liu, who was the Asian Ken in Barbie and the frontman of Shang-Chi. And, you know, he's done a lot of stuff on Shark Tank in the US. So he's now a big name. You know, people like him, right? People in Asia particularly like him. And that's where we kind of face the big issue. So speaking with customers to kind of understand how important trust was really kind of brought that home. And let me tell you, it's not easy to get a CEO to say, yes, here's $5 million, please go and build some trust. But taking those conversations from customers was actually the thing which persuaded him.
Right. And I think that I saw that you also had a mention by Stephen Bartlett, right?
Yes.
For one of your other companies. So that's very interesting how you take these big personalities and kind of use their authority to build respect and trust. But how do you kind of differentiate having a personality just saying the name of your brand and it actually reaching the audience and performing and building trust?
Yeah.
How do you make sure that this actually will bring ROI? Because it's a big investment, right?
Huge investment. It's difficult, but it's got to be authentic, right? Actually, my experience of working with talent, so Stephen Bartlett, Simulio, we did a whole campaign with Steve Wozniak, one of the co-founders of Apple, Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the internet. You know, they're not all Hollywood names, but they're sort of big names, particularly for people that we're targeting. It's sort of built in, like they're not going to work with individuals, brands and companies that they don't trust and they don't believe in. So there's that. You kind of need to have belief on both sides. But because of that, you know, because I think we've done such a good job in persuading these big names that actually what we're trying to do isn't just sell software or isn't just sell payment services. There's a mission behind it, democratizing access to payments, you know, breaking down financial banking barriers when it comes to crypto payments infrastructure. Because we can sell them on that mission, they kind of buy into that. And because they buy into that, it means they're so much more authentic when it comes to talking about it. So it's not just like, hey, use Awesome or use Dext or use, you know, Paybis because they're really great. It's, this is a problem I have. These guys I kind of trust to solve this problem. You make your own mind up.
Okay, I'm very curious then, as a follow-up, what are your, let's say, 3 things that you notice about companies that are trying to build trust and that fail at it? Why do they fail at it?
The problem I see is a lot of companies are on broadcast mode rather than engagement mode. And you and I, you know, the three of us know what that means, but sort of simply put it down. The equivalent I would use is you have a madman with a traffic cone stood in the middle of a motorway shouting, right? No one's listening. Maybe it makes him feel good, but no one's listening. It's not going to. That's broadcast mode for a lot of companies. And you see it on LinkedIn, right? Can you guess the percentage of LinkedIn content that gets 0 engagement? It's like,
Oh, it's huge.
It's like well above 75%. So some like 75% of poor fools on LinkedIn are kind of like broadcasting their corporate slop and no one is listening and no one is engaging. So we've got broadcast mode. Engagement is like having those conversations and it takes more time, it takes more resource, etc. But, you know, that's my sort of key observation is that companies who broadcast don't build trust. Companies who engage build trust. But you asked for 3, so I'll give you 2 very short ones as well. It's not about the just the message; it's about the medium. So, you know, if stuff is coming from an anonymous social media account rather than actual human being, that's so much more. That's much less powerful. And by the way, most stuff shouldn't come from the CEO or the founder. Like people trust the cool social media girly or like the crazy nerdy operations guy far more than they trust CEOs when it comes to communicating the company's message and brand and authenticity as well. And the last thing is it's not about what you want to say, it's about what people want to hear. And I have this argument all the time with founders and product people. They're like, oh, we're building a triple lock bank grade security double layer block 3 chain, blah, 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 like words that, you know, I've got a degree from a good university, you guys have too, words that we can understand. It's not about what you want to say, it's about what people want to hear. So stop thinking about, okay, this sounds good for us, this is what I want to say. Start thinking about what does my audience want to understand from me or to learn from me or, you know, to be engaged by me.
That's great. Yeah, I agree. The message, ultimately, it's about the receiver and not about the sender. So you need to make sure to communicate in a way that people can understand because otherwise it just doesn't make sense to do so.
Yeah, and going into this broadcasting mode that you mentioned, so it's so easy to track all of these things. Like we've posted that amount of posts, or we, I don't know, like spread that amount of articles through Pressfire or whatever. And you have these numbers, right? And they might look good. But how do you combine these two? So quality and quantity, how you present it to the CEO, for example, who also want numbers, not just, we told this story through all of these channels, like, or cooperations with these big, well-known people. Like, how do you measure results, and how can you prove that these conversations, these real conversations, are bringing business results?
You know that Stalin quote, "One death is a tragedy, a million is a statistic." I think there's a kernel of truth in there for what you've just asked, and it's a really difficult thing to be able to do. In my experience, CEOs are interested in the million deaths and the tragedy. What I mean by that is if you can say, oh, hey, one of our biggest customers saw this set of posts on social media, or gave us a compliment on something they saw on YouTube, or saw our ad, that is as valuable to the CEO as saying, and we got this level of engagement, or this share of voice, or this message penetration as well. So I don't think it's an either or. I think you do need both. But the qualitative, very human feedback, in my experience, has been as important as numbers. And let's not forget, CEOs see numbers all the time. So sometimes that qualitative stuff can be the real golden nugget.
Yeah, actually, talking about metrics, that's something that I think Anastasia and I were discussing about your profile when doing our research. Your profile as a CMO is very metrics heavy, and it doesn't sound, when we read your bio, it doesn't sound like your brand only type of CMO. So how do you balance the creativity and also the revenue management and growth and all of that? How do you balance both?
I'm really glad you asked this question, because I think it's there's a tragedy that I want to highlight, but before I do, I'll answer your question directly. I came up through the brand route. So I worked as a political lobbyist, which is as far removed from what I'm doing right now as possibly can be. I then had a founder experience and sold, etc. I worked for the world's largest advertising agency, Omnicom, and in there I did sort of brand stuff for big brands, big sort of FMC brands like Johnson & Johnson. And I did a whole bunch of like communications and PR stuff
PR as well.
for like Facebook, Microsoft, Google, like all the big tech brands as well. So that kind of like my course to seniority, or my kind of like learning curve was largely in the brand. I made the decision that actually, if I was going to survive like a career apocalypse, over the next 20, 30 years, I needed to expand my skill set. And so marketing came calling, and I had a great opportunity to move to my first kind of marketing role, where the CEO said, you know what, Paul, you get brand, but you do not understand performance marketing. And I'm really disappointed. And I was like, you kind of, when someone tells you that, you think, right, I'm going to kind of come over it. So I've made it a hallmark to become incredibly data driven, incredibly sort of familiar and successful with all the different hallmarks of performance marketing, whether that's affiliate SEO or kind of ad buying as well. So the short answer, the short version of that is I've done that by force. But the tragedy that I want to talk about is I was asked to interview by this CEO like a while back for a role, and he looked at my resume, which is sort of essentially taken from my LinkedIn, as you said, and said, I don't understand any of this. Like, it looked, yeah, sure, you're talking about doubling this and 30% this, but like, what the hell are you talking about? And the tragedy is that my LinkedIn and my resume is optimized for an algorithm, not for a human. So like, I get loads of, I probably shouldn't say this, but I get loads and loads and loads of messages from recruiters every day because my LinkedIn is optimized for the algorithm, so that it goes to the top of a recruiter's list. But when it gets put in front of a human CEO, they're like, what is this absolute jargon? So it's a real lesson, right? Like, so I should probably change it.
Yeah,
But
then
then
what was the reason for you to create? Like, was it on purpose? You
Yes.
created, yeah.
Yeah, it was a test. Yeah, it was an absolute test.
Wow, so interesting. I never heard of this.
Yeah, try it, honestly.
And it works.
It works. It works from an inbound perspective in terms
Yeah.
of getting recruiters. But as I said, when you put that in front of a human, they're like, okay.
You talked about building a career for the future that would sustain a potential crisis. I see AI as the next potential crisis.
Yeah.
So I want to talk more about AI. I think it's something that a tool that you've been using very extensively, but also been very vocal about how people are not using it right. So in your opinion, is AI helping marketeers or just creating worse marketing?
I love this question. And the very short answer is AI isn't working for marketeers at the moment. I'll give you a few examples. I give this sort of keynote and I start by saying, look, I'm an AI maximalist in the sense that I'm all in. But I'm an AI maximalist in the same way that an early Briton would have been a Roman maximalist when the Romans were invading, right? As in, like, you know, I just kind of have to...
Yeah,
it's going to say it's happening, so I better get on board. But unlike the early Britons, so Britain got invaded in I think 38 AD by the Romans. I don't think it's 38 AD right now. I think sorry, I don't think it's 38 AD. I think it's 33 AD. Meaning, I think we're years away still from there being fundamental disruptions to our industry. I'll give this sort of example. So you remember the Will Smith spaghetti video from a couple of years ago? And it was terrible, but it was still, you know, you're like, oh wow, you can create something with these words, but it wasn't very good. The velocity of innovation and the acceleration of that innovation over the 2.5, maybe 3 years since that video has been phenomenal. If you think about that video now, then, and what you can produce now, these hyper-realistic, you know, full video animations with voice, etc., it is astounding. Okay, so the velocity of acceleration is huge. The velocity of value created by that is almost flat, if you think about it. And I'll give you a really human example, two really human examples. One, if I produced a similarly beautiful AI avatar video saying, hey, you've never heard of us, but come and buy crypto and spend your money with us, no one is going to believe it because it completely lacks authenticity. And people realize it's just AI slop, right? But also, I'm just using that kind of Will Smith video example to chart the velocity of acceleration of how AI has improved. Where is the disruption that we were promised? Where are the hundreds of thousands and millions of marketeers and lawyers and accountants and coders and engineers being laid off? Where is the productivity gain that we were promised so long ago by Sam Altman and all of these scions of the AI world? It's not materialized because AI doesn't work right now, it may well in the future, for marketeers, for any professional services in a way that fundamentally adds value or changes what we do. Sure, it saves time. Sure, it can make things easier, but that's it at the moment.
That's interesting that you mentioned it because I already hear about the stories when companies are trying AI for their ads campaigns and they are like on the one side they're optimizing the settings for the ads and it works really good, but on the other side with the videos that you mentioned and photos, they're doing the whole photo shoot with AI and it looks very good. I'm also aware of them requesting from different models around the globe signature that they don't mind using their faces, so you will have this model in your campaign from somewhere in the world, and it works really well. All of these videos, hyper realistic, they attract attention, and good thing about it is that you can try it very fast, so you can launch it, try it, and then change something.
I think that's really important, and I'll give you a really live example. I think it's important when you do these sorts of conversations to not only talk about what's worked, but also talk about what's not worked. So we did exactly what you've just said, Anastasia, because some of this sort of benefits are really obvious. And we produced a whole set of YouTube thumbnails using my avatar. So we scanned my face, whatever, and we put me in a cowboy hat riding a horse. We dressed me up as a mummy. This is using AI, as a mummy chasing a Bitcoin, right? Based on the data you get back from YouTube, these sorts of very imaginative, creative thumbnails really work. You just have to look at, YouTubers like Mr. Beast and whatever, look at their thumbnails. It's all like that. It didn't work. because of authenticity, because people trust people, etc. It may be different for other industries, but our ability to produce things that we could test faster and produce them faster did not correlate with the success that we expected in terms of engagement.
Okay.
If AI has increased output but not necessarily value, what does that tell us about the real problem that marketing teams need to solve?
That is a fantastic question. I can talk from a CMO's perspective. One of my biggest problems is you have a huge volume of data that you A, need to pull from multiple sources, B, synthesize, and synthesize as in like make it all kind of comparable, and then C, analyze. Okay, so like right now that's still a very manual process. You can use AI to do some parts of it, but it's all very sort of clunky and disjointed. So I think what I don't want is more advanced video models. What I want is more advanced models that enable me to take multiple inputs from multiple sources, not just data, but bring them together and organize them in a way that I can make decisions. Because I think that's really what marketing leaders, whether you're a CMO or marketing director, that's what the role is going to become. Your key qualities will be your creativity, your judgment, and your taste. And so if we find AI models and tools and processes that are able to do the hard part of collection to allow me to do the hard part of exercising creativity, quality control, judgment, and taste, then that's the big leap. So that's the big missing part at the moment. And that's why I sort of say to people like AI isn't working for marketers, certainly not working for me in that way.
Right. And you kind of answered my next question, which was, as AI becomes increasingly important in the workflows of teams, what's going to be the role of the CMO of the future? But you've already kind of answered that.
Yeah, look, I think it's judgment. I think it's all about judgment. AI isn't, at the moment, the trajectory of AI will be replacing what we do rather than necessarily massively changing or improving what we do. So do we need 15 copywriters? No. Do we need 4 data analysts? No. Okay, so fine. So you have some productivity gains there, but it's still doing the role of like a junior or a mid-level copywriter or data analyst. You still need that human verification. Fine, we all know that. But you still need to exercise judgment and taste, particularly when it comes to creative, and particularly going back to my original point, when it comes to remembering the key thing that we as marketers do is we understand humans better than anyone else in the business, and that won't change. AI isn't selling to AI. AI will be selling to humans. Human dynamics, human psychology doesn't change. And fundamentally, I think that's what the CMO's role is going to be about.
Exactly. I think it's the same with different industries. For example, in PR, we had a talk with journalists in the space, and they are sharing the same thing. Like, it won't be possible that the media industry will work fully with AI, like agents and whatever, but they can produce content, right? But everything is still... like the foundation is human interaction, the foundation is relationship that we are building, and the partnerships, whether it's for marketers or the founders, right? You still need to be a human to understand 100%. Humans. And as you started with this user interviews and understanding the customer, no AI will be able to find that insight that then you can transform into a very successful campaign and the whole story that the business will be telling throughout the years.
I want to give you a very short example. I 100,000,000% agree with that. I hate reading because I have to do it so much in my job, and I'm very bad at it. Like, I lose attention. And I particularly hate reading news, or I used to anyway. I now have not only God knows how many kind of news apps and information apps on my phone, but I can also get like my news and information and analysis from TikTok, YouTube, etc. I have recently started every Sunday morning getting up early and going to the shop and buying a physical copy of the Sunday Times newspaper.
That's very British.
It's very... Well, okay, fine. It's very British, yes, indeed. But the reason I do that is I crave something physical rather than digital because there's so much like digital noise, so I can focus. But also, like, the news, the kind of bullet pointed news I can get, but I do want to read like someone's in-depth analysis and opinion, even though I may disagree with it, because actually that is an enjoyable part of consumption, of information consumption. And I just wonder, you're talking about news and journalism specifically, I just wonder actually whether that's the direction journalism is going to go, is producing more opinion and analysis, because we can get news from everywhere. But yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned this. This is very relatable about physical stuff. I also heard that Zoomers now like these phones, like old style phones.
Yeah.
I think that it will be everywhere because we are so like overwhelmed with the information and with like abilities of AI. And then we will all need this like newspaper or a phone or something that will feel real.
Connecting us to real life.
Exactly.
Very interesting. Yeah. So before we wrap up, I would like to ask you some rapid fire questions. So the idea is don't think, just answer the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to say both or it depends. Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Brand or growth?
Brand.
Trust or attention?
Trust.
AI efficiency or human creativity?
Human creativity.
Account-based marketing or broad reach?
Account-based marketing.
Sales alignment or creative freedom?
Creative freedom. 100%. Good questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. And we'll see you again soon. This was Known. Thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe.